Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is my very great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Geoff Mulgan, Chief Executive of the Young Foundation. Now, the Young Foundation does a huge amount of work in the health sector, a lot of work which is hidden under a bushel because they don't normally shout about it and talk about it, but it is extremely well known in the corridors of power, as it were, because what they're all about is going out and finding all the innovative stuff that is happening out there at all levels within the health service, and then turning it into something, turning each of those projects into something that really works commercially, as well as delivering the right results to the patients and to different areas of healthcare. So Geoff is going to lift the lid on some of that for us. So without any more ado, please welcome Geoff Mulgan.
Well, good morning or good afternoon. I hope you're all wide awake. I'm going to try and share some thoughts about how innovation is going to be done in the next few years across the health service. I'm hoping that some reasonable visuals will get us there. I talk about how you get better ideas, how you get them proven and then adopted across the NHS. And I hope I'm going to throw out some angles on this and maybe ask you to do a little bit of thinking and conversation about the issues raised. I'm going to start off with two extremely depressing graphs. The first of these shows across the OECD the relationship between health spend and death. And those of you who are acutely eyed will notice the more you spend on health, the more people die, which is a rather depressing finding. Slightly more depressing even than that is this next slide, which shows the change in health spend and improvements in mortality, showing that the countries which have raised their health spending most have achieved the lowest improvements in mortality. Now, these are, I think, incredibly challenging statistics for people in the NHS, for people like us, people like you, because they imply the scale of the challenge we have, particularly in times of scarce resource, in terms of getting better value for money, keeping people alive longer, better, and so on. In a way, everything I'm going to say follows from these. We know that in business and every other field, if you want to improve your performance 10, 20, 30%, the only place you're going to really get the big advances is through innovation, but also through adopting what other people have done, what they have demonstrated, and doing that well. Any of you who are familiar with Charles Darwin and evolution know that all change actually has some very common patterns to it. And everything I'm going to say in the next 20 minutes or so, in a way, is identical to what happens in the natural world. Evolution happens in part through mutation. You try different things, you multiply the possibilities through rigorous selection of what works, what survives, and then through replication and growing of the things which work best. Our problem in most health systems in the world is they're not very good at any of those. They're not very good at multiplying creative possibilities, not that good at rigorously selecting, and then often poor at spreading, growing the best ideas. What I want to talk about, in some ways, is the parallel to the systems which exist in pharmaceuticals, medical instruments, and so on, which are fairly mature systems for taking ideas from being just a prompt, an idea, right the way through to large-scale impact and even systemic change. And I want to really focus on those areas which complement advance in pharmaceuticals, clinical treatments, and so on, and address the other things which are becoming more and more important to healthcare, how you organize services, public health, behavior change, and issues like that. And I thought I would start off with a quote from a medical journal from a few months ago. Here we go, loneliness and the risk of mortality. Controlling for age and gender, all chances of mortality significantly higher amongst respondents reporting that they often feel lonely. And this is particularly the case for circulatory disorders. Now, this, I suspect, is not a familiar approach to you. Most health services do not have strategies for loneliness or policies for loneliness, but this is just one example of a new kind of knowledge which is prompting new kinds of innovation. And so I thought I'd use this to get us focused on the innovation question. And what I want you to do for literally 1 minute is to turn to your neighbor and imagine that you had to, in 1 minute, design an innovation strategy to reduce loneliness of the people affected by the health system you're involved in. Very, very fast. Talk to your neighbor whether or not you've met them ever before. This will hopefully reduce loneliness in the audience, but also get us some ideas. Is that okay? Right. So I'll literally just get it for 1 minute, just to, yeah. I'll keep it quick. Okay, that is plenty. It only takes a minute to come up with a sophisticated strategy for a complex problem. We won't draw in your pearls of wisdom just yet, but hopefully we will a bit later. What I want to do now is quickly suggest what some of the tools might be to help you answer a question like this. And what I'm going to show you draws on work done by a network of organizations involved in innovation, which we host from around the world, as we try and see what methods they use for finance or design or engaging with patients and users. And I'm going to start with the things which prompt innovation. What is it that drives it in the first place? One of the most common findings of research is that the single most important prompt for innovation is, in fact, money. When money is in surplus, people talk a lot about innovation, but they don't actually do very much because it's too difficult. When money is short, there's no choice but to find the methods and models which will deliver you big productivity gains. But there are many, many other methods for prompting and driving innovation, like new knowledge, like crisis, like petitions and campaigns and pressures, and so on. I won't go through all of these, just maybe mention two to get us on our way. This is one of my favorite ones from Finland, which is the complaints choir. This is when citizens come together and sing about the things which really annoy them. And this is actually quite a helpful prompt for innovation, and it makes them feel good, and they get off the chest. I've never seen a hospital complaints choir, but it might be quite an interesting thing to do. Here is a very different kind of prompt, which is simply some statistics on loneliness again, which shows a percentage of the British population with no one to turn to, no one to comfort, and it turns out there's about 1 million people with almost no social support whatsoever. And not surprisingly, those people often have many health problems of all kinds. Now, there are 1 million kinds of prompt. The question then is, how do you turn that into ideas? How do you multiply your range of options? There are familiar methods in the university, teaching hospitals, and so on. But in fact, most of the methods which are potentially usable aren't used at all. So here you see a whole series of methods like competitions and prizes, crowdsourcing methods. There are some health systems have artists in residence, A-teams where you get junior staff working together. TRIZ is the Soviet Union's creativity methods copied in Silicon Valley, believe it or not. Skunk Works, which NASA and others use. Many, many other methods, all designed to multiply the range of possible options to be used.